Well, it was a normal, routine flight. Climbed up to 12,000 feet. Nice, beautiful day. Everything was going well. And then all of a sudden, I felt this really sharp pain in the right side of my head. And when that happened, it just felt something I've never felt before. So I told Russ and Darren, I said, guys, I don't feel good. And they said, what does that mean? I said, I don't know, but my head is killing me. The next thing I know, I remember Darren and Russ tapping me on the shoulder, saying, stay with us, Ken. And then that was it. Well, it was a normal, routine flight to the Bahamas, which I've done many, many times. Matter of fact, I had just been over there 3 days before. I had asked my friend Russ, hey, I'm going to the Bahamas for the day, pick up some people, I'm flying by myself. You want to ride with me? He said, sure. I said, well, great, we'll have lunch in Fort Pierce, and it'd be a nice, easy flight. So, weather was perfect, took off out of Lake Wales. Plan was to stop in Fort Pierce to pick up another one of the owner's friends. So we stopped in Fort Pierce, picked him up, took off, was cleared direct to Marsh, flew to Marsh, no problems, arrived on time. Darren was there waiting on us, who I was scheduled to bring back home that day. We took off out of Marsh somewhere around 11 o'clock, climbed up to 12,000 feet. Nice, beautiful day, everything was going well. And then all of a sudden, I felt this really sharp pain in the right side of my head. And when that happened, it just felt something I've never felt before. So I told Russ and Darren, I said, guys, I don't feel good. And they said, what does that mean? I said, I don't know, but my head is killing me. And the next thing I know, I remember Darren and Russ tapping me on the shoulder, saying, stay with us, Ken. And then that was it.
Now they were heading a direction away from where they were originally going, which was to my airport. And about 10 minutes had passed since the airplane went in the dive, and that's when I heard the first call.
Full 3, Lima Delta, come in.
Caravan 333, Lima Delta, Fort Pierce Tower.
I've got a serious situation here. My pilot has gone incoherent. I have no idea how to fly the airplane, but I'm maintaining in 9100.
As soon as the words "serious problem" came out of his mouth, I was already reaching forward and hitting the button on the console, and I put it over the speaker so everybody else in the tower could hear what was going on. A couple of things went across my mind. Well, maybe since they were up near 10,000, maybe hypoxia might have been a factor. So I decided to eliminate that. I asked him to start a slow descent.
Try to hold the wings level and see if you can start descending for me. Push forward on the controls and descend at a very slow rate.
Yeah, I'm descending right now at 550 feet a minute, passing 8640.
Number 33, Lima Delta, roger, and continue the descent and try to level off at 5,000 feet.
10-4, what heading do I need to be at? Give me a compass heading, because I have no controls. All my electronics went when we went in the roll.
November 3, Lima Delta, maintain wings level and just try to follow the coast, either north or southbound. We're trying to locate you.
The person working the ground traffic next to me got on the line, started talking to Palm Beach, asking if they knew who this was, where he was at, and my supervisor in the back also started making phone calls. I'm getting bits and pieces of information as the situation's continuing, and then I started trying to get his phone number so that we could call him, or somebody could call him, or give him a cell phone number where he could get in touch with somebody that could help him. At a certain point in there, the Palm Beach controllers managed to key in the Fort Pierce frequency into one of their emergency radios, and Bobby was already talking to him and guiding him to the Palm Beach airport from there.
So I get a page, I take the shortest route I can, and I head immediately to the radar room. I walk in, I'm meted by my supervisor, and he says, "This is the situation. We're picking you because you're a pilot, you're current, you're a CFI. We just want you to help them get to any airport to land safely." So I'm thinking, oh man, like, why me? You know, how did I get selected for this? You know, should I really pick this shift? But just these thoughts are going through my head real quick, and I was like, okay. So I sit down and I said, "Can you hear me?" And he said, "Yeah, I got you loud and clear." I said, okay. So as this is all going on and I'm talking to him, my supervisor, he had the manager print out the instrument panel, but it was a steam gauge. So after we got the story of what kind of instruments he had, we had another diagram to look at, but it was also the glass cockpit. So I'm using these two diagrams, trying to figure out what he's looking at and how can I help him. So I'm just trying to keep him, you know, comfortable, keep talking to him. What I want you to do is start a right turn. He had pretty good control of turning the plane. I just was afraid to turn him more because of what could happen, what could go wrong when you turn. So I got him on a good northbound heading. I told him, I want you to start descending, just a slow descent. You know, I don't want you getting down too low too early. So I'm just watching his rate of descent, watching his airspeed. He starts talking, just asking different questions. Do I know how to turn on the avionics? I said, don't worry about that. So I told him the plan. I said, I'm gonna keep you a little higher and I'm gonna fly you past the airport, or, you know, have you fly past the airport. And I'm gonna point it out to you, but I'm gonna turn you out to the west and line you up for a long final. Well, while this is going on, I start talking to him about, you know, slowing down the plane, but not too much, worrying about stalls, you know. So I just describing how to use the trim wheel, how to use the power lever, looking at my diagram, kind of doing that with my hand while I'm talking to him. And I always try to keep him comfortable just by speaking to him, avoid the dead air, you know, that way he doesn't feel uncomfortable. And now I started to see that all these instructions I'm giving him, he's able to listen to me in this kind of a high stress environment, but he's actually working. Everything I'm saying, he's listening to, he's not shutting down. So I was really confident. It's like, we're gonna get him close. I just don't know how the landing is gonna go.
Darren's a very positive, go-get type of guy, and he was just going to take charge that day. Simple as that. He was just going to take charge, and he was not going to let that airplane beat him.
Every mile that he went, I was like, go ahead and start a descent, just pull some power out, push the nose down. I said, you're a 5-mile final, you're 1,500 feet, you're a 4-mile final, you're 1,000 feet, you know, you're a 3-mile final, you're 800 feet. I just kept talking to him all the way down. I said, your speed's a little fast, you want to pull a little bit power back. And the only other thing I did was I said, as you get closer, the runway's going to look very narrow, but as you get in closer, it's going to get wide. And as it gets very wide, that's when you're going to want to kind of pull your power back and kind of transition into landing. I kind of talked him into what would be a flare, what I could describe as a flare to him. This was all done from the radar room with no windows, pretty much just talking him to the radio, and probably just him doing the best job he could do just to picture what the landing would be. With radar, as you get in really close, usually our target drops. So I wasn't even thinking about the target dropping. I was just like talking to him from the radar this whole time, and all of a sudden the target drops at 300 feet. And I was like, oh, my heart dropped because I thought he was gone. And for like 2 seconds, I'm just like, uh-oh. And then I said, are you there? He's like, I'm still here. I said, all right. Just remember, the runway's gonna get wide, and when it gets wide, that's when you need to start flaring and pull your power. So he gets on the runway, and he says, I'm on the runway, what do I do? I said, all right, just put your feet to the top of the pedals and apply pressure. So he gets it stopped, and he said, how do I shut this thing down? I was like, you know what? I do not know how to shut this down. So I just say, Looked to my supervisor who's standing right behind me, who flew the Hurricane Hunters, like, hey, how does he shut it down? He just said, pull all the levers back. So I said, hey, just pull all the levers back. That was the end. They had, cut the radios, boarded the plane. Other than that, they came over to the one guy came over to the tower, Darren, who had was the passenger who landed the plane, just to meet us. We hugged it out, took him for a quick tour, and that was the story that day.
The next thing I remembered was being pulled out of the airplane by what I now know was the ambulance crew. And when I was being pulled out, I remember saying, no, I've got to get back up in the seat of the airplane, because I didn't understand what had happened. I just knew I woke up and I wasn't where I had been sitting, earlier. So, I remember the ride to the hospital in the ambulance. I remember getting to the emergency room, the doctors doing an evaluation on me. Spent 6 days in the ICU, not fully understanding what had happened or how I'm still alive. I didn't understand how the plane got to the ground. I knew that Darren and Russ had to land it, but I didn't know all the details at that time. But I'll tell you a little story. On the way over, we were flying, and Darren was with us on the initial trip over. And we were flying, and at this time, I was sitting in the right seat and the owner was sitting in the left seat to get some left seat time. So as we're descending out of 12,000 feet, Philip got just a little fast on the airspeed. And all I said on the headset was, hey, just watch your airspeed. And Darren was on the headset as well in the back, and he said, well, what does that mean? Can we go too fast? I went, yeah, we can go too fast, And he goes, well, what's going to happen? I said, well, if you go too fast, you overstress the airplane and, things could start breaking. And he said, well, what's the worst that could happen? I said, well, the worst that could happen is our wings rip off and basically we become a lawn dart. So we laughed about it and, that was it. After this whole incident, I was talking to Darren and I asked him, I don't understand, because I looked at the track log and we were doing like 295 knots over the ground. Caravan's not designed to do that. I couldn't understand how he just didn't rip the wings off. And he said, well, you probably don't remember our conversation. I went, what do you mean? He said, well, on the way over, we were talking about things and you said something about, ripping the wings off. So I knew not to pull back really quick on the yoke when we were in that dive. I knew I had to slowly pull us out of that dive or something bad was going to happen. So he remembered that, just that little conversation we had, and that probably is what saved everybody's life. Well, I think if anybody gets put in that circumstance, don't give up. Try to stay calm and fight to the bitter end, and you see a positive outcome because of a great team of guys that kept Darren and Russ calm to safely get this plane on the ground. I mean, if everybody would have been panicking, it could have been a whole different outcome. It's always nice to be able to have a calm voice on the radio guiding you and assuring you that everybody's on your side to have a positive outcome. I was shocked, really shocked, just to be alive. Twice. It's hard to put into words my gratitude to the outcome that happened, and for him to remain calm and to be able to safely and calmly and in layman's words talk Darren and Russ down to the ground is just simply amazing. I mean, I owe my life to those two, as well as everybody else in the facility that was giving them some support that day. I owe my life to them.